This is a podcast where we talk and begin at an A2 level, and by the end of the episode, you'll be listening to someone speak at a native English speaking level. The way this works is I will introduce the topic of the day. I will introduce it at an A2 level, and every 3 minutes or so, we will increase the level to a B1, to a B2, to a C1, and finally, because I'm from California, you will hear my native Californian accent. This is a podcast intended for students of all levels. If you are a beginner, I encourage you to listen, obviously, to the A2 and B1 section and try to see if you can follow along in the B2 and the C1 and the native speaking part. If you are someone who has already spoken English for a long time and simply want to practice listening, you can warm up with the A2 and B1 section, or you can skip straight ahead to the B2, C1, and native English speaking parts. So let's start with today's topic. Today's topic, I will be talking about how English is taught in foreign countries. Foreign countries, I mean in non-English speaking countries. Basically, any country that is not the US, the UK, or Australia. One of the things that I have realized with my students, I have students from all over the world, from Europe, from Africa, from South America, and I have some Asian students as well. One thing that is in common with all of them is that when they're taught English at school, they're not taught how to speak properly. Teachers at their school focus a lot on grammar, on vocabulary, on writing, and all of these things are very important, don't get me wrong. However, when they get older, when they go to university, when they look for a job, they don't feel confident enough to speak to anyone. This is because at these schools, perfection is expected. Normally, I'm sure most of you have heard something along these lines. Teachers tell their students, if you cannot speak perfectly, don't speak. Which is something that is very, very terrible to say to a student that is learning a new language. That is the end of level A2. Let's continue to level B1. Like I mentioned earlier, perfection is demanded from the students. Imagine you're learning something for the first time. Remember when you used to ride a bicycle? Remember when you learned how to play football, maybe? When you learned how to play any other sport? You weren't perfect the very first day, were you? Of course not. So the question is, why do teachers expect students to be perfect at a language that is not their native language, right? Why do teachers expect students to be perfect in English? That is the major problem that I see with how English is taught in foreign countries. I live in Spain, and a lot of the people that I have met can speak English very, very, very well. They should be students that are at a B2 or C1 level. However, because they lack confidence, they're speaking as if they're an A2 or a B1 level person. I like to call these type of students my beginners that should be advanced. Perfection being demanded by teachers to students is unreal. It's not something that students are capable of achieving because they simply lack the practice. So if you're one of these students who feels as if their grammar is great, their vocabulary is good, but their speaking is horrible, it's likely that you're one of these students who lack confidence. It's not that you don't understand English. It's that you have this weight on your shoulders and that you expect perfection out of yourself. And that expectation of perfection is keeping you from improving your speaking skills. That is the end of level B1. Let's continue to level B2. So, as you've seen by now, the most important thing when it comes to speaking English is confidence. Without confidence, no one is going to understand you, and you will not be able to speak with anyone. Take native English speakers as an example. Most native English speakers actually speak horribly when it comes to grammar and when it comes to vocabulary. Native English speakers pretty much invent their own words. Let's be honest. None of us, as a native English speaker, or for that matter, think of your own mother tongue, whether it's German, whether it's French, whether it's any other language in the world. Think of that language that you speak. Now think about it. Do you speak with your friends in the same way that you speak at your job? Of course not. Because with your friends, you speak in a much more casual way. You're likely making a lot of grammar errors. You're likely using vocabulary that is very made up, slang. And when it comes to speaking, you're probably speaking very, very fast. So that is the same thing that happens in English. When we speak English, it's not so that people think that our level of English is amazing, that they get impressed with the way that we're speaking. No. When we speak, it's so that the other person can understand us. Now, I ask you this. What do you think is better? A person who can communicate at, say, a 50% level, maybe this person has confidence, they lack a little bit of vocabulary, they lack a bit of grammar, and so they can't communicate as perfect as they would want to, but they can get the message across. For example, they can give their opinion about a movie that they saw. Or, on the other hand, let's say there's a student, a person who cannot communicate at all. They both went to watch the same movie. One person can say that they thought the movie was great, that they liked the acting, that they liked the special effects, and the other person cannot say anything about it. Which do you think is more effective? That is the end of level B2. Let's go ahead and continue to C1. Being understood is the most important thing when it comes to communication. Far more important than it is the words that you use or the way that you communicate. Think about it. When you don't have the words to express yourselves, but it's very important for you to express yourself, what do you end up doing? You end up signaling with your hands, right? You end up signaling with actions. You move your body. You try to get the message across to the other person, because what's most important is that the other person can understand you, that you can communicate with them, and that they can give you a response to whatever it is, the method that you're using to communicate, right? So the same thing comes when we speak, especially you who are at a C1 or a higher level. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. Again, who's perfect? Whose way of communicating is perfect? Including the politicians, business owners, and all of these people that we hold at a high regard. Those people also lack a lot of vocabulary. They lack a lot of grammar. They lack a lot of fluidity. If you look at politicians, if you look at athletes, if you look at business owners, a lot of them have some pauses when they're speaking. They go, they take a few seconds. They think about the next thing that they're going to say. They're not completely fluid either. So this is what happens when we are raised at school with this idea of perfection. When we're raised with this idea of having to be perfect, having to speak perfectly, we lack confidence. We cannot communicate and express ourselves in an efficient manner, in a way that everybody else can understand us. Rather, we don't communicate at all. So really, could we say that we know English if we're not even willing to speak? Speaking is the most important part. It's great that you write, but how many times are you going to pull out your phone or pull out a notepad and write in English to the person that you have in front of you? Never. Or I hope never. And it's great to understand. It's great to listen. It's one of the most important things. But speaking is what we use the most. Speaking is the one thing that is going to be our gateway to communicate and to create new relationships, to be able to network, and to really be able to accomplish meeting all of those people that speak English. That is the end of level C1. Let's go ahead and move on to native speaking. In other words, my Californian accent. All right, so this is a part of the class where I speak in my native Californian accent. And as you can see, as a native Californian, I use hand gestures a lot. That's just the way that we speak. Don't blame it on us. Blame it on the culture. Anyways, you're going to hear me speaking with a lot of slang very, very fast. So try to do your best to keep up. I want to encourage you to speak with any person that you have in front of you. You know, whether it's your homeboy, your homegirl, you know, whether it's some dude that you met at a bar, it's some dude that you met at a club, some dude that you met at a cafe, some stranger that you met online, you know. Make sure that you simply open yourself up to communicating with any person that you have in front of you. At the end of the day, let's keep it 100. The more you communicate, the more you break out of the shell, the more comfortable you're going to feel, you know? The more relaxed, the more chill you're going to feel when it comes to communicating with people of other parts of the world. You feel me? Communicating with other people especially is going to help you be able to understand different accents. At the end of the day, we don't all have the same accents. We all speak very, very differently. As I just mentioned right now, some of us speak very slow. Some of us speak very, very fast. And if you go to different parts of the world, if you go to New York, if you go to Boston, you're going to see that they're speaking with a much more close accent. In California, we speak very fast, but we speak very clearly. In the UK, a lot of people think they speak very funny. I think it's amazing the way that they speak. Very difficult to understand, yes, but nonetheless, they speak a pretty cool accent. They speak a pretty cool accent. So having said all of this, all right, so I know I probably didn't speak with a lot of slang right there. That's because I was speaking very, very fast. So don't really want to combine both of the things. You feel me? I don't want to combine the speaking very fast with the slang. At the same time, my brain is still a little bit in teacher mode. And normally when I'm in teacher mode, I don't really use a lot of slang. However, in the next few classes, speaking about different topics, technology, science, politics, anything that you guys comment, anything that you want me to talk about in any way, shape, or form, I will go ahead and speak about it. If it's topics that I feel very, very knowledgeable with and very, very comfortable with, you're going to hear my Californian accent for sure come out like it did right there a bit. So I hope you like this episode. I just want to finish off by saying I really like the interaction. I would prefer if the people that listen to this comment what topic they want to hear next, that you share with your friends, with anybody that you think could benefit from this. And if there's anything else, any feedback, if there's any words that I mentioned that you're not really sure of, leave a comment and I'll do my best to explain, especially if it was one of those slang words. And other than that, I thank you for taking the time to listen to this. This is really dependent on your feedback. So if there's anything that you feel could be improved, go ahead and also comment that. And that is it for now. We're going to wrap this up here and we'll tune in next episode next week, most likely, but I'm not sure. Anyways, have a great day. Enjoy. Go and practice.